Hey, what's up everybody? Barn on 11970, and as always, I thank you guys for watching my video. I thought I'd do one more before I start my activities for the day. And this is very important because if you don't learn from your mistakes, you are going to be doomed to repeat them for the rest of your life. And the title of this video, as you see, is Buying Low and Selling High. You'd think that's a no-brainer, but if you see how the television tries to steer people in a certain direction, they've been studying this for decades, probably even longer, that human emotion affects what the people do. And if you get a large group of people to go in a certain direction, many people tend to follow without question. Now, I've been talking about gold and silver since the beginning of 2011. Back then, I didn't know as much as I know now. So I was fooled a little bit as much as everybody else when it came to the emotions of when people like Max Kaiser and others were talking about, buying silver at any price, not telling us really about the manipulation the way they should have, finding out that they bought very low and they turned around when it got to around $50 in silver, they dumped it all. So they use people's emotions to do the opposite of what you're supposed to do, which is, if you're buying for investment purposes or whatever, trying to make a little extra income, you're supposed to buy low and sell high. But what they do is they get you to do the opposite by using your emotions to work against you. Like, for example, when you see prices low, like what's going on with gold and silver now in the past couple of weeks and throughout the summer, most people either hate it, or they stay away from it, or at the very least, don't talk about it. So there's no buzz. Now, if you think about investments, buy low and sell high, well, compared to where silver was in 2011, it's more than half off. So instead of being scared away, that is supposed to be the time you're supposed to buy. But what happens is there are some people that think it's just going to keep going down, and they get too greedy, and they don't stop and see how it's starting to level off a little bit, and we do have to hit a rock bottom eventually. And if you go by mining costs and what it costs the majority of these mines for gold and silver, it couldn't go any lower or couldn't go much lower than where it was. I predicted that. I told people around the 1850 was going to be the rock bottom, and you could see it hasn't hit there since. Can that change? Absolutely. But what happens is you see on the television, you hear the newscasts, the reporters, and the general buzz from the investment world, stay away from gold and silver because look how far it's dropped. Well, remember when there was a dip in the Dow Jones in 2008 where it crashed from its all-time highs? Look how many years it took to get back to that level. So it shows there are adjustments in all markets. You just have to know when to purchase. Now, what happens is, as silver and gold, if it continues this trend, and eventually it will, and you start seeing gold and silver start to rise again, all of a sudden when it gets to a certain point, it's going to create another buzz, which means all of a sudden when silver gets to 29, 30, 35, 40, now I'm not suggesting I'm guaranteeing it or anything, but if things continue the way they're going, ultimately that's what could happen. All of a sudden you're going to start seeing a buzz, and all the people that were haters and bearish on it all of a sudden become bullish and they start buying, which means they didn't buy when silver hit 18, 19, 20, 21. They're buying it at 30, 35, and so on. So they're spending a lot more money and getting a lot less. Now, let's say it goes to 50 again, and again, I'm using this as hypothetical. I'm not guaranteeing anything because I'm not part of the manipulation, because the manipulation does go both ways, up and down. But let's say it gets to 50 and we get a whole bunch of buzz again. Let's say it gets up to high as 55, so it breaks the all-time high. Now everybody's talking about it. Everybody thinks, oh, let's jump on the bandwagon. And they turn around and pull the rug out from under you, and it goes from 55 down to 30. Now what will happen is, most people, because they were doing it based on greed, and they don't research, and they just follow what everybody else does, and doesn't really realize the situations, the manipulations, and the causes behind them, will all of a sudden start to panic sell. Which means they bought high, and as it's dropping, they start selling. So they sell low. So that goes against the whole idea of being able to invest properly, buying low and selling high. But because they create a panic and they make people think, oh, it's going to go to zero, you're going to lose everything, you might as well sell and cut your losses. All the people that buy at the bottom are the smart ones who wait until it gets too high, then they start selling it. dumping it, lowering the price, and then they buy it all back, and it's a repeated cycle. That's why if you actually study the history of the stock market and any kind of investments, they tend to go in this direction, up and down. It's never this, it's never this, or unless it's a business where you're investing in stocks where a company goes out of business, they can go to zero. But things like precious metals, things like oil, things like any kind of commodity where people need it, it's never going to go to zero. So hopefully we've all learned. And I'll admit, you all admit from your mistakes. And back in 2011, I didn't know as much as I know now. I didn't know the manipulations the way I understand them now. I didn't know how the market worked as I do now. So instead of repeating the same mistakes, I've learned to correct them. And that's why I've made my biggest purchases this year with those dips. Now, I didn't spend millions of dollars because unfortunately I don't have it. But every little bit you add, especially when you hold on to it in the physical form, you just sit back and wait until the time is right. So there are going to be corrections. They don't last forever. And when you know what's going on and you really study it, and you're in it for the long haul, and you're not in it just to make a quick buck, you could sit on it, wait around, and watch the economy and the masses do all the work for you. So I'm going to just leave it at that. If you're a physical stacker of gold and silver, you're happy today, but it's just begun. You ain't seen nothing yet. The Fed is eventually going to start talking about not only the fact that they could not taper and take away, soon they're going to be saying we need to put more money in, because that's the only way to keep this fraud alive. The only reason the economy is looking as good as it is, and I'm going to put that in quotes, is because they're putting money into the system. If they take that money out, where's it coming from? All the jobs we're creating? All the car industries, all the cars we're building, all the jobs and situations, that's all going over to China. It's all going overseas. So we're not creating that much income anymore unless you consider the stock market as income. But last time I checked, the stock market doesn't create anything except illusion and lies and lots of debt and millionaire bankers who screw us all. So if you think that's going to help the economy, keep going with that. So thank you for watching, guys. If you like what I have to say, please give it a thumbs up. Share it if you appreciate it. And we'll talk again soon. Peace.